Alright, time for another DraftScience video presentation. Just do some comments. I don't know if there's any value in it, but what the hell. Because, there's some point, I suppose, in illustrating how there's just no point in having a conversation because nobody could do physics. Anyway, so Ocean's Estate, which, I don't know. I mean, just I can't, you can't even figure out what he's talking about. So he says acceleration is lower on the larger mass object, question mark. I mean, I do my best to illustrate, that there's a simple process. The mechanics has to come down to some sort of simple argument that every collision is made out of a bunch of little sub-collisions. That, when you hit something, your electrons and your protons are hitting something. So you have to kind of understand that there's an elemental function to every function, but the basic rules we can discern from looking at big objects, and we can see the end result. And the idea is that things when something bangs into something, it can't make, I can put a lighter object in front of it, I can't make it go faster than this object is going unless I put a device in here like a spring or some other mechanism to make it possible to convert the energy. So I can make a lever, or I can create pulleys. We all understand you can wrap rope around pulleys, and then you can change how fast this rope moves versus how fast this rope moves. So you can create mechanisms to convert energy, essentially store it, and when you store it, you can release it any way you want. So if you put the energy into a battery, you can take it out all at once, like at very high amperage, or you could take it out at very high voltage. You can choose how you release the energy. So when you put it into a storage device, you can do that. But when you don't, when it's just a collision, all you're going to do is be able to, if this is going 16 miles an hour, the fastest this thing can go is 16. That's if it's really a nice, if they're very hard objects and they have their interaction very quickly, this one will leave with the same velocity this one had, and so this one will just lose a little bit. So if its mass was 8, as I've used in the examples, and then you could do the math. That's 120, 128, 126, yeah, something like that. And if you gave something else that had a 4 mass, the 16, is a velocity, and that would be whatever, 58 or 64. And then you minus the 64, and you see that, in that first interaction you used up half your energy, and you've got 64 left. So in one interaction, one bowling pin, you lose half your energy, and so now the next time you hit something, half your energy has come out of your velocity. So if you lost half your energy, you have to lose more than half of your velocity to be able to, if we do the multiplication to get up to 64, I have to reduce this velocity down to 8, right? So I went from 16 to 8. I cut the velocity in half just by hitting one bowling pin, for example. If I was using pins, I'm just saying, I give you this explanation, so those are the rules. So what's even using the word acceleration is just kind of bogus. This is about transfers. One object has motion, and it's going to essentially give a portion of its motion to something else, and it gives the portion based on how massive it is and how fast it's going, and those are the rules. It can only give the speed it's going. It can't give a faster speed unless you use some other mitigating device. But if you just punch something, the most you can do is make it go as fast as your fist went. What don't you understand? Question mark. Yeah, I'm asking you the question. How are you? Why aren't you following along? And then you say there's got to be a difference somewhere. What the fuck are you talking about? How are you saying anything relevant to the video or the conversation? I don't get it. So yeah, so I'm going to delete your comment. This is just why do you bother? Why the hell did it do that? I didn't ask you to do that, fucker. I really didn't click on anything to say do that, but whatever. Alright, so I clicked on this. Remove. Thank you. So Jeff Who is supposed to be Superior Mind. Who cares? Change his name. I don't care. Yeah, it's an open and shut case. The energy reserves need to be measured over time for each case to get the total. So look, the simple argument is you can't say that the, if we're going to make the comparison between how much energy a 5-ton train, okay, going 10 miles an hour, all right, versus a 10 mass train going 5 velocity. So they have the equal momentum, but somehow the kinetic energy formula says the lighter, faster object has more energy. Now you can't judge how much energy those rolling trains have by saying, well, what happened with the first bowling pin it hit? Okay, let's only measure the first pin it hits. That is the first piece of the friction we're going to apply, the counter force we're going to apply to measure how much energy it has. No, you have to grind it to a halt. You have to find out what it's going to be when it's all done hitting things. And then you get the total. Because guess what? This one is going to lose a lot more. The first piece of friction is going to be like the first bowling pin. It's going to use up half of its velocity. It's going to lose half of its velocity, 1/2 of its velocity in the first interaction. Where this one's only going to lose a quarter. And, it's just a simple argument. There really shouldn't be any dispute that you can't just measure the first piece of the interaction, the first second of the whole interaction, and say I've proven they have different amounts of energy. Obviously the fast thing will cause impact in the first seconds, and the slow thing will have impact for a longer amount of time. It's more durable. We all know that from personal experience. So yeah, just too stupid. Alright, so I won't even read the rest of this because it's just an agreement pretty much with the points I made. Okay, so this infamy guy, just too annoying. Well, here, I'll read his previous comment first. When I deleted. This is just too stupid. So he says, maybe if you use actual numbers. So the two videos previous to this video that he's commenting on, the video he's commenting on plus the one before it, I'm using numbers. So I take the numbers of the slit, the width, the thing, and I point out how it works. Okay, what I'm arguing gives you the right result, and what they're arguing gives you the wrong result. Now, what can you say? Anyway, maybe if you use the actual numbers, you'd have to prove your point. So I'm proving in the video that their math doesn't work. That's the clear accusation. There's no evidence their math does work. Stephen Bro will never do an experiment showing the two-slit math working, because it doesn't work, and he doesn't do any math. But besides the point, I mean, it doesn't work. It won't get the right answer. He can follow their instructions, and it won't duplicate the pattern he's going to get on the wall. And he's too much of a duplicitous cheater and liar to tell you that. Anyway, or if you use a coordinate system to show how the numbers play out in the real world. So just more horseshit about how I haven't provided enough numbers. You don't need no more numbers. Newton's F equals change in momentum over time is a correct formula. Momentum is energy. F equals E equals momentum. So I'm clearly asserting to you, moron, okay, and I've done it over and over now, 4 videos in a row. This is just horseshit. That's the formula you need, okay? Newton's gravity formula is correct, and it has the inverse square law in it. What more do you need? There's a gravitational constant. It tells you how you give something mass, you multiply it by the gravitational constant, and it's going to tell you how strong the gravity is, and then the inverse square law is going to tell you how it degrades over distance. All right, those rules haven't changed. Einstein isn't providing better physics. He's just providing an explanation, and it's a silly one. He's saying it's some sort of bent space stuff. There's some sort of bent space stuff that electrons can detect, and they can figure out that, oh, I'm supposed to go towards something. That's it. There isn't anything else added. Einstein's crap about time dilation doesn't take any effect until you get to preposterously fast speeds. And frankly, I'm going to argue it's all horseshit. There's actually no physical evidence of any of that shit. All there's evidence of is that when you move isotopes, radioactive isotopes, at a velocity, they degrade slower. That's all there's evidence of. Alright, anyway, I'm curious how... You're not curious about anything. You know, I guess until you say the words, hey, I'm really surprised to hear that they don't have evidence for any of these stupid theories. Thank you. Until I hear something like that from you, all of this is just horseshit. All right, this flaccid defense of absolute crap. Their physics sucks. Their evidence sucks. Their math doesn't even work. That's what I've shown. And you're just pretending somehow I haven't done enough. That would be enough. I don't even have to have a counter theory. Right? I don't have to have anything to replace bent space with to point out how bent space is a silly fucking answer to a question. Why does it happen? Bent space. It doesn't work in 3 dimensions. You can't even... What do you mean bent in 3 dimensions? How do you bend it in 3 dimensions? In 3 dimensions, it's called a convergence. Okay? In 3 dimensions, the theory turns into vacuum cleaner theory. Every piece of matter in the universe is somehow sucking on all the other matter in the universe with a magical energy force. There's a vacuum cleaner that doesn't have to be plugged in. That's this theory. It's a pile of shit. Anyway, and you aren't saying anything to reclamate it. You're not saying anything to explain how it's not a piece of shit. You're just doing this crap. I'm curious. You're really not. How would you explain temperature mathematically? Again, if it's momentum, it's just mv. So you just measure the velocity of the atoms. So the faster they go, the higher the temperature. So you just figure out what the velocity, you just associate the amount of momentum, the weight of the atom, and the amount it's moving. And there isn't anything in the historical record to indicate that it isn't exactly as I stated. So Joule, the guy they named the Joule after, okay, the brewer, okay, he didn't find any evidence of mv squared. Okay, when he did his experiments, he found he dropped weights and stirred water with the dropping weight. Okay, and there was a clear correlation between the amount of energy of the falling object and how much it heated the water. And the correlation was an mv squared. Alright. So, I mean, you're not asking them to provide you any mathematical clarity. Where do you have any mathematical evidence that mv squared is correct? Where do you get the idea that it's correct? What experiment convinces you it's correct? What's your source for believing? God. Mathematically as well, question mark. Yeah, so again, it's just momentum. Atoms have momentum. Now the key thing is that the key energy, the more elemental energy, is the movement of electrons. But we don't have a thermometer to measure the heat of electrons. And frankly, that just ends up turning into gravity. Gravity is essentially a byproduct of the energy of the fundamental force being absorbed by electrons. When electrons move, they're absorbing energy out of the universe because they move slower than the speed of light. They move slower than the force that hit them. And that means they've degraded the force. Okay. I mean, but I've done videos on this, so again, you just want personal instruction. Fuck you. Clearly, these are videos about specific subjects, and you just refuse to pay any attention to that, right? These are 2 slit videos. These are videos on specific subjects. Now, this happens to be kinetic energy, but you know, why don't you just stay on the fucking subject? Oh, that's right, because you're not here to do anything rational or reasonable. You're just here to play troll. Okay. Or is the problem that too much numbers, too much numbers, that's what it says, are being used and not enough analogies and metaphors. So what the fuck? So again, you're putting words in my mouth, like somehow I don't like numbers and I like analogies and metaphors. No, I like accurate statements. So I'm demonstrating that their statements aren't at all accurate. The two-slit experiment is not a two-slit experiment. It's a four-surface experiment. Okay, so they're not using proper analogies. Water doesn't do what light does. Light doesn't do what sound does. When they keep saying it does, it's a lie, because it doesn't do the same thing at all. The patterns are completely different. They're structurally different, they're made different, and they don't have the same elements. They're the ones depending on analogies and metaphors that aren't true. Bent space. There's no bent space. There's no two-dimensional universe we live in where you can bend space, okay, and create gravity wells made out of gravity. Gravity wells only work if there's gravity to push things into the well, idiot. Okay? In 3 dimensions, it's a frickin' 360-degree convergence. It's a spherical convergence. It's a collapsing of something's form, essentially. It's a vacuum being created. It's a vacuum cleaner. Do you think that's how the universe runs? That every little speck of matter in the universe is sucking some sort of magical stuff that's causing everything else to move in the magical stuff? Fuck. That's the question you have to answer. Why do you believe that crap? What math did they show you? What special thing did they do that make you believe? Or do you just believe because you're a dumbass sheeple? You believe because they say so. Fuck. Alright, hey. So this is just obviously the troll with some moronic name you wouldn't even bother trying to pronounce. Hey, what are you even fucking doing here? Question mark. Stephen Bro already tore you a new one many times over. So every single one of Stephen Bro's experiments is a dirty, filthy, sloppy pile of shit. Every single one is flawed because he doesn't pay any attention to the theory. He doesn't pay any attention to things like spring constants, that there's limited springs have limitations, that you can stretch a spring too far, or you can oblige a spring to produce an energy level it can't do because it doesn't move fast enough. He doesn't care about any of the rules, okay, the laws. And again, when measuring the energy of a system, he thinks all I have to do is measure the first millisecond of the interaction, and that's the whole interaction. I mean, simple things like that he can't figure out on his own. He needs to be told, you can't do that, Steve. Yeah, too stupid. Anyway, you're through. Notice how nobody's commenting anymore. They're not commenting anymore because they're not smart enough to comment in any kind of way I'll find tolerable and acceptable. They can't tolerate, they can't talk relevant to the actual subject. You're all so fucking dumb, okay, that you can't form an argument in any kind of structure that is at all relevant. That's the liability. You're all too stupid. You're really just too ignorant. I mean, I have spent a lot of time familiarizing myself with all of these subjects, and you haven't. And that glaring deficit in your education is so apparent when you defend Leibniz. Because there's nothing in the Leibniz history that at all any rational, science-loving person could like. There's nothing about Leibniz to like as a scientist. Because he was nothing but a religious kook. Okay, anyway. And he certainly wasn't, building on Newton. I mean, who's Newton's worst enemy. Let's understand, this is not, kinetic energy is not Newton's physics. It was invented by his worst enemy in life. See, if you had some sort of knowledge of the subject, you'd know these things. And you'd know it's preposterous to call mv squared Newton's theory. Because of course it isn't. Okay, except superior mind under the new name because he's ashamed of himself, whatever that means. Who cares? And the trolls, like you aren't one. Oh, yeah, duh. So stupid. I mean, these people, they have fake conversations with themselves. This is all what they're about. It's being a fake. And then they talk about like they're defending the truth as fakes. You get how that probably doesn't work. That people willing to have fake accounts and create fake conversations and do a lot of fake newsing and create fake thumbsy upses. That those aren't people that are really going to be defending the truth. Yeah, that's not too likely, is it? No, it isn't. You're not getting anywhere near the thumbs up you did, which is just horseshit anyway. I mean, it's always been about 50-50. And who cares? I mean, how is this to impress me in some way? Okay, as anything. What I'm looking for is an impressive argument, and you can't form one. You can't make a counter argument relevant to any of the points I've made. And it's clear I'm offering $2,000 free dollars to be, ridiculed and shown to be an idiot. I'm paying people to do it, and they won't do it. Okay, so clearly, the fact is you don't have the argument. The fact is, it's like Baldy Cat's admitted. He doesn't know how to argue with me. Because he can't. He can't form the arguments because the fact is I'm right. You can't counter the argument. How do you counter the argument that bent space doesn't make any sense as a word? Because you can't bend nothing. And even if there was something to bend, you can't bend it in 2 dimensions. The real universe is 3 dimensions. How do you bend it in 3 dimensions? Makes no sense at all. The space isn't bent. It's a convergence. The space is absent. It's missing. And you're sucking stuff into the mass. And you don't have any explanation how it gets blown back out again. Hawking radiation, maybe? Some silly crap. Dark matter. Yeah, maybe that's what dark matter is. I just watched the Sabine Hassenpfeffer interview where she's, apparently she's getting paid, by these silly institutes like the Premier Institute or whatever it's called. And, so she belongs to some institute that's supposed to be doing this dark matter study. And apparently she's not too convinced anymore, But she's still arguing for it, like it's necessary, but she can't figure out how it can work as a particle, so she has to try to make it into some other kind of bizarre shit. But she admits that the gravitational lensing images make no sense without dark matter. So without dark matter, she concedes they're mathematical nightmares. They're garbage, mathematically. I mean, the irony of it, right? So... I mean, they, when they have some alternative way to fix it, then they'll admit that it's horseshit. But before dark matter showed up, she would have said, "Oh yeah, that's good evidence." Even though now she admits, no, it's really shitty evidence because it doesn't make any mathematical sense without dark matter. I mean, their duplicity is so obvious. Okay, everyone now sees what a joke you are. Well, again, the laugh is going to be the last one on you. All right, so you're just making my story more heroic with all of this trash talking horse shit. That this is the best you little fucktards could do. You're making me more and more outstanding as a human being, more and more unexplainably brilliant compared to you fucknuts. You're just making my story bigger and better, okay, just in terms of making me so much obviously like I must be an alien life form because all of you are so inferior. You can't produce a single fucking reasonable counter argument. Not a single one, and yet you keep persistently saying your babbly, silly baby theory that doesn't even mathematically make sense. Your perfect math that doesn't even work. It doesn't even come close to getting the right answer. So why don't you, again, Stephen Bro, why don't you do it? Why don't you show us the right answer being produced by Dr. Lincoln's mathematics? I mean, you're such pathetic liars and hypocrites and shit talkers. So pathetic. And like I said, I have provided an email address, so even when you were blocked for being rude and obnoxious and stinking, ugly, nasty pieces of crap, you still have a chance to send me your links. They can't send me a single fucking link. There's not a single fucking link to any experiment demonstrating that it takes 4 times more fuel to go 60 miles an hour than 30. There's no evidence of this crap being the truth. They just keep saying it. No evidence. They just keep arguing that this is the reality, and they have nothing to prove it with. Nothing. This is so bad. Alright, so this is his new comment. So you have an equation for energy, force, and gravity. So again, these are specific arguments. I'm giving you an explanation of gravity. I don't need an equation. I'm giving you a mechanical explanation for the existence of what was called gravity. We all know that the basic formula, and the idea is what's causing it. So I'm explaining the cause. I'm not explaining it. The inverse square law falls out of it automatically, because it's just basically the argument is a certain amount of energy goes in, all right, and a little tiny bit less energy comes out, because the energy is absorbed moving the matter inside the object. That's why it's hot. The Earth is molten because of gravity, because that's actually energy being absorbed from the universe. Where do you think the energy comes from? How do you think the matter inside the Earth constantly gets moved? Something has to be moving it. You get it? No, you're not going to get it. So the idea is an electron doesn't have perpetual motion. The idea is that it has to be pushed by a force. And if there's no force pushing it, it's not going anywhere. That's the idea. So you think everything just moves, you give it motion, it just moves forever. Well, no, only the forces move forever. Only they keep their energy, and the matter is just a pawn. It's just a victim of whatever the force says. So however the force is doing, that's what the matter's going to do. So I've explained this in the videos on the specific subject. So again, what is it you want as the 2 slit, I explained so clearly. They're arguing that waves are popping out of 2 slits, okay? I'm clearly pointing out how that math doesn't work. That won't get you the right answer. Not even close to a right answer. And that the right answer comes by measuring these vectors. Combining these vectors, that gives you the right answer. I mean, what do you want? A formula? What do you need? I already gave a formula for figuring that out. Okay, when it's in phase and when it's out of phase, you just make a triangle, okay, and you use this angle here, and that'll tell you the answer. So I already did all this crap. So what is this nonsense? Yeah, that's right. You're just pretending I haven't provided an argument. I have. A very good argument. And you're just ignoring it and playing some stupid word game. Okay, what else does it say? Are they all force, so it's the same equation for everyone. So I don't even know what you really think. There's going to be one equation for everything. Like, I say, I don't know, I ask any question, and you're just going to use the same equation to answer the question. I mean, it's just nonsense. I don't even know what you're talking about. They're all systems, and every system has its own character, and it has its own rules based on what it's made out of. Brick buildings are different than wood buildings, or different than, houseboats. They're different things. Okay, yeah, the concepts are all kind of similar, and there'll be some underlying rule, and I've just explained what the underlying rule is. Energy equals force equals momentum. So if you know something's momentum, you know what it's going to cause when it hits something. I mean, this is just such crap. Please provide the numbers without a base. I only have the F equals mv divided by t. And again, the t doesn't mean anything, so you can get rid of the t. And you have F equals mv, which is a pretty powerful statement. Forces are momentum. Light is momentum. Everything moving the speed of light is conveying momentum to objects. And there's rules based on what form it's in. So if it's a little ... code, okay, at a frequency, then the ability to cause motion in electrons is specifically controlled by that frequency, and you can create electricity. And if you put the pattern in another code, maybe I'll do that video tomorrow, magnetism, you create another kind of code, pattern of the force, you have magnetism. So it's just about creating patterns, and different patterns will cause different effects. But again, this has nothing to do with each one of these videos, which is pointing out how, especially this one, Stephen Bro's making an argument that an object has more energy than another object. And I pointed out the obvious flaw in his experiment is he didn't measure the total energy. He's only measuring the initial impact of the fist, not how much weight's behind it. So he's no appreciation for the full power of the mass. Okay, its ability, its endurance. None whatsoever. So he's just giving the cheat, to the fast thing by measuring only the first interaction rather than measuring the last interaction. Anyway, a clear argument you paid no attention to. You're just off the subject completely. You're just really not trying, right? You're just not even trying. You're saying somehow I haven't successfully argued to you that they don't have evidence. I've pleaded for the evidence. I can't show you the evidence. Nobody's provided any evidence. And yet you're still, well, I'm convinced because they have so much evidence. They don't have any evidence. There's zero evidence. Zero. And yet you're going to give me an argument about how their physics is rational when there's zero evidence supporting it. Fuck you. Alright. So I don't know. I think this is just a stupid argument. Let's see. Sorry. I like how this LIGO lab setup is uncomfortably similar to the Michelson-Morley experiment. That's the whole point. It's supposed to be the Michelson-Morley experiment. So, yeah, that's how you detect gravity waves. Okay, they use the same experiment. And they expect to detect gravitational waves. Hypocrisy much. I don't even know what that could possibly mean. Anyway, that's an older video. Obviously, when you find out the truth of what's going on at LIGO, again, the whole idea of them bouncing the beam back and forth 1,600 times, anybody rational has to say, gee, that's really... You went into a mirror 1,600 times. The photons went into the mirror 1,600 times. And scientifically, we can't, there's no way to make a mirror where you know exactly where it's going to reflect, like off what atom it'll reflect. So every time it goes into a mirror, it's reflecting off a different thickness in the mirror. Every single time. 1,600 times. It's doing all of that. Who knows what atom it hit. And they're going to tell you that with that ruler, they can measure 10,000 times smaller than a proton. How could anybody believe this when they can't even be sure of the distance between atoms? There's no way they can do this measuring the size of a proton. They can't even measure the size of an atom with that ruler. Anyway, just ridiculously silly physics. Alright. I've done my job. I mean, I pointed out the whole Eddington thing so many times. They've never even proven that light is bent by gravity at all, let alone bent twice as much. I mean, it's so bad. So there's nothing to say. Again, it's just... So the evidence is really horrible. There's nobody defending it because they can't defend it. They can't defend the fact that they've never repeated the Eddington experiment. You've got 400 times better resolution in space and they never even tried to do the experiment. I mean, come on. Bullshit. 400 times better resolution. Too ridiculous to be believable. And they all know. You all know it. All you defenders, you gotta know that's really, gee, I wish that wasn't true. Don't you really wish you had some evidence for some of this stuff? I mean, you know, something to justify what you're defending. You're just making these extraordinary UFO claims, and I don't have any idea why you have so little integrity that you want to go spend your life doing this. There's a Sasquatch living in the 4-acre woods next to my house or something. Why do you want to be one of these fucking wolf crying, lying sacks of shit, defenders of absolute babble, religious baby talk? Why are you defending it? It's so bad. The science is so bad. I mean, you certainly wouldn't let biologists or any other scientists get away with the crap physicists get away with. It's just so bad. This made up crap. On just so scant evidence. And then they actually, again, the dark matter thing, the proof for dark matter is it fixes all of the stuff that didn't really work that we kept saying was true. It's so ironic, right? It fixes all their broken assumptions are fixed by the magical dark matter. And that's why there must be dark matter, because, yeah, it fixes all of our mistakes. All the ones we lied about. You know, all the stuff we said was true, but man, it's not really true because it doesn't work. Okay, but dark matter fixes it. So obviously there must be dark matter, but it fixes everything. It works to fix all problems. It's the universal rug to sweep all your little mistakes under. It's just silly glue. I mean, it's not crazy glue. It's silly glue. Anyway. So that's the state of things. There's no physics to argue here because none of you people really know what physics is. You know, it does have some details. You don't have to get into the extraordinarily complex abstract mathematics, but you do have to understand that everything does have catches to it. There's nothing, you know, it's all a little bit complicated in terms of you have to take account for the atmosphere has some friction and the ground has friction, and you know, all the different little aspects that you have to take account for. Anyway, so I just really do hate this planet because people are just belligerently stupid. And that's a clear lesson. Most people are belligerently stupid, clinging to nonsense, you know, comforting nonsense. I don't even know how it's comforting, frankly, but whatever. Just yeah, silly stories. That's it. Alright, this has been a DraftScience video presentation. Till the next time when I will attempt to reason, but you're not doing your part of the bargain, you know. There's no reasoning if you're not going to apply any logic and if you're not going to have any intellectual honesty. Then there really can't be any kind of conversation. Alright, till next time and such.